Hey everybody, welcome to the first week of summer. And the question that's on everybody's mind right now is, how do I start to go back to normal? How do I rekindle friendships and relationships that may have had a hard time during the pandemic? And if you're pretty plugged into the news, you've probably already seen a dozen or so articles with tips and suggestions on how to reach out and make small talk again and do all of that awkward social stuff that we used to so that we can return to normal. But actually, normal is pretty overrated. Even before the pandemic, people were really struggling with disconnection and loneliness. Maybe this is an opportunity for us to go back to a better normal, to redefine what it means to be connected and in relationship. So for this summer, whether you're looking to reconnect and rekindle or completely revamp your relational life, I'm hoping to offer a few suggestions in this video to help you along the way. Okay. So before you go all gung-ho on reaching out to everybody in your network and trying to make friends again and hanging out and doing all the social things, take a moment to just think about how much resource you actually have. You really need to keep in mind that you have a limited capacity for connection and you need to use it wisely. There's a theory called Communicate, Bond, Belong theory by Jeffrey Hall and Daniel Davis, which says that all of us have a limited social emotional gas tank. We have resources that we use to go out and engage and connect and relate, and we have to balance how much we expend with how much we need. If we spread ourselves too thin, it's really easy to get overwhelmed and burned out to the point where your relational life actually becomes more stressful. So for many of us, we've had a year where we connected a lot less, we were seeing people less frequently, and so it's important that you really try to pace yourself. Keep in mind that your gas tank might be smaller at first, and it may take time for you to really get used to being in relationship and spending time with other people. So you want to make sure that you're giving yourself that space, giving yourself that time, and going in slowly. And then on the flip side, you want to keep in mind that other people also have limited gas tanks. So there may be folks who you're reaching out to or trying to connect with who turn you down or say they just don't have the time. And part of that might be that they really feel overloaded, that what used to feel like a pretty normal, light lift social interaction actually takes a lot more emotional resource than it used to. So don't take that personally. They have a limited gas tank just like you. And hopefully as everybody starts interacting more, everybody will get back to a place where they're able to engage. And with this last year of less engagement, my sense is that most people will be able to appreciate it even more so going forward. Now, there have probably been some people over the past year that you stopped texting with or just didn't see very much. Maybe there were people that you had a disagreement with or a fight because of differing beliefs. And now that we're sort of coming back together and reconnecting, this is an opportunity for us to maybe rebuild some bridges that were burnt. So consider offering some forgiveness and some leeway to the people that you've lost connection with over the past year. Maybe it's a simple reaching out with a text, offering to grab coffee, or just connect a little bit and consider giving the person a second chance. Maybe they didn't mean to drop you like that. Maybe they didn't mean to hurt your feelings the way that they did, and this can be a chance for you to rekindle that connection. And the key to all of this is being willing to have that awkward, clumsy conversation with the other person. Start off by just sharing how you felt. Use a lot of I statements. I felt really sad when we didn't talk for the past year, and I would really love to reconnect with you. I felt kind of hurt when we disagreed about this thing that was on the news, and I'm really hoping that we can rebuild our relationship. Those kinds of statements can go such a long way with helping the other person realize that you still value them, that you still want this relationship, and that's a great way for you to rekindle and move forward. There's also a phenomenon in interpersonal psychology known as rupture and repair. There are moments in relationships where we hurt each other, we mess up, we hurt each other's feelings, and sometimes that ends relationships altogether. And don't get me wrong, there are definitely things that we do that should end relationships. But for the most part, when we step on each other's toes or hurt each other's feelings, there's room for repair, there's room for forgiveness and making amends. And every time you make amends after there's a rupture, it actually tends to strengthen the relationship. And that's what we call repair. And just like muscles, when you work out, they break down and they're not as good for a little while. When they've had a chance to mend and recover, they actually knit back stronger. And the same is true for your relationships. All right, so this next tip is particularly important for people who find themselves not getting invited to do things with other people. And this is all about learning to take the lead. See, loneliness tends to make us want to withdraw. We feel like people don't want to spend time with us, we feel bad about ourselves, and so we don't interact, we don't engage. But see, the secret for finding friendship and having a space to belong isn't always about going to something that somebody else invites you to. Sometimes it's about creating your own space of belonging. Sometimes it's about being the one who's willing to reach out even though you feel lonely, even though you feel like maybe nobody will show up. And it's true, sometimes people won't come to the thing that you planned, or maybe they had other things to do. And that doesn't mean that they don't want to spend time with you, it just means that it didn't work out that time. So you have to be the one who's courageous enough to put yourself out there and try to create that space. And it really doesn't have to be anything fancy. Maybe you invite people to join you at the park to go for a walk. Maybe you ask people to come over to your house to watch a movie and eat some popcorn. Maybe you choose a book that you haven't read and you ask other people to read it with you and do a sort of book club thing. You don't have to go all out and throw this big extravagant party in order to have people to want to be connected with you. Everybody's yearning for this. You just have to be the one to reach out. Okay, so this last tip is all about rediscovering yourself, which sounds very cliche, but that does not invalidate it. See, a lot has changed over the past year. When you think about everything that's changed in our world, so much has happened, but also things have happened for you. Maybe some of your preferences shifted, maybe some of your relationships faded or adjusted or changed, and it's worth taking at least some time to do some reflecting to figure out who you are now. Maybe the things that were most important to you a year ago aren't as important anymore. Maybe it's worth figuring out what kinds of relationships actually are worth investing in and which ones aren't. The more that you can spend that time doing that self-examination, the easier it will be for you to make the choices that fit your life best, that will be the most meaningful and satisfying going forward. And you can do a lot of this on your own. Maybe you take a little bit more time to be on your own and reflect and think about what matters to you. Maybe you can start a journal and write down some of your experiences over the last year and how they impacted you. You can also consider working with a therapist. After all, you don't have to do all of this self-examining on your own. We've got folks who are specifically trained to help you figure out what matters most to you in your life and how you can get there. Deep Eddy Psychotherapy wants to wish you well with figuring out what it's going to look like as you begin to return to life as normal, and my hope for you is that you'll try to find ways to make it even better than it was.